Welcome to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Weemy, a peak performance coach and business strategist dedicated to helping you see what's possible within you, the blind spots that are holding you back, and the solutions to ensure success and fulfillment without the hustle. I use my secret sauce of metaphysics, brain science, and scripture to work with God to manifest your ideal life and business. If you're ready to create massive forward momentum in your business and bust through the blocks that drag you down, join me on the Spiral Up journey and create the clarity, confidence, and consistency to become the CEO that lives your life by design. It's time to create the sustainable impact, income, and time freedom you desire faster. Now is the time to spiral up.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Weemy, and you guys are in for a special treat because you get to meet my friend, my fellow Spiral Up expert, Brooke Elder. You guys, she is going to knock your socks off with her amazing story. And if you have been, listening to the Spiral Up podcast for a while now, you know that I'm really, really picky about who I let on the podcast, right? It's only clients that I've helped and amazing experts inside of my Spiral Up community. And so just kind of give you a little background around why I have Brooke here and how she is serving our Spiral Up community. I asked her to become an expert because I wanted to support my clients who have already gotten to the point where they created their sustainable 10K months. And they're like, all right, Lachelle, I'm ready. I'm ready to take on the next level. And I was seeing this need and I want to bring in Spiral Up experts that can meet needs of my clients that basically have zones of genius that either I don't have or I don't want to have. And Brooke is one of them because I'm like, all right, you are a genius when it comes to taking somebody from solopreneur to employer and basically telling them like, how do you decide when it's time and what are your next steps and how do you hire and how do you determine payroll and the culture and all the things that goes into that. It's so much more complicated. And oftentimes because we're overwhelmed by that, right, Brooke, we just don't start or we let ourselves stay stagnant for too long. So my goal inside of Spiral Up is to give my clients resources so that there are no buts in your way, right? There are no buts of, I don't know how, or I'm not ready. Let's just bust through those and get you to where you're supposed to be and to follow your God, God-given calling. And so, Brooke, that is just a small sliver of what it is that you're capable of. And I cannot wait for our audience to be able to hear all about you, your unique story, and how you serve people. So why don't you go ahead and fill us in? Like, who are you? How do you serve people? All the things.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. So my company's name is True North, which really aligns exactly with everything that you're doing in Spiral Up. So, because I found that there's a lot of like business mentors out there and coaches and gurus, and they are really good about helping you with your business goals and being very like hustle and grind, like let's get this happen.
Yeah.
But they don't really look at like, well, what kind of mom do you want to be?
Yes.
How do you want to show up as a spouse? What do you want to do like with your friend life? Because we are more than just business owners.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that's just it. Like as an Enneagram 7, anybody that follows that whole thing, like I'm all about spontaneity and adventure and I just want to have fun in life. And I love the fact that you are a true example, Brooke, of the and life that I talk about all the time. Like we get to create massive impact. We get to feel challenged and fulfilled and be whole in that way. And we get to be a more present mom and we get to experience life to the fullest and we get to be, an engaged spouse. And so I just love the fact that you have lived that and now you help other people do it.
Yes.
It's so much fun.
Exactly.
And so why don't you describe a little bit more about True North? Because like I said, like you do help people transition from solopreneur to employer, but you also do so much more than that. And I just want to give you some credit right now because you help people stay in their zones of genius. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. Because that's when it comes to hiring, that is why you hire people.
Yep.
So that way you can take the things that you're not good at, just like why you bring in experts.
Yes.
Perfect example.
Yes.
Because the things that you're not good at, you can hire those things out and then you stay in your zone of genius.
Yes.
But it's important to do it in the right way and not to do it all at once. because I
Yes.
made that mistake in my business. I was like, well, I want to scale, so I need all the things. So I
Yes.
hired all the people, and then I had no profit. And then I'm like, okay, wait a second. This is not a good idea.
That is so, I mean, that's why we hire coaches, right? We hire coaches because we want to expedite our journey. We want to learn from the mistakes of others so that we can hopefully avoid them ourselves, right? And that's what I love is that our purpose, and I love that your company is called True North, because our purpose is really birthed out of something that we've had to go through ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We've triumphed over. And now we want to help the person a step or two behind us get there. And that's basically what you've done.
Yeah.
And I think that, diving into this whole summer series of supporting the mompreneurs who are wanting the and life, we want to be able to not only find ways to have sustainable 10K months, but we want to move beyond that. And we also want to be able to enjoy the nice, summer days. Yesterday when we met online, I was sitting outside on my porch swing. I'm like, it's nice in Minnesota. Like, I don't want to miss out on this. And so we want to be able to enjoy our lives. We want to be able to have those moments with our kids and not miss out. So how the heck do we balance everything? And the thing that's really cool is that you have a very unique story, Brooke, around this crazy, cool, amazing year-long adventure that you took. And you had to balance all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
why don't I give you the floor and you tell us from a mompreneur all of the details around that cool, crazy adventure and allow us to learn from your lessons and be inspired.
Well, my husband and I had this idea to sell our house and all of our stuff, like everything. We had 7 bins. That was it. And I have 4 kids. So there's 6 people. We had 7 bins. That was it. Like we sold everything. We bought a sailboat in South Africa and we sailed across the Atlantic Ocean and up through the Caribbean and just had an amazing time while I was running my business. So it took some getting used to. You definitely have to change when you have a lifestyle change that drastic. Like there is some growing pains. And especially when we were crossing the Atlantic, I didn't have any internet. We had satellite and I could text, but that was about it. I tried to download an email and it took 3 days. So
But the fact is that like you are showing us that this is possible. That's like right up my alley is doing something like that. My husband, settles me down a little bit. He brings me back to reality sometimes, but I'm all about it. I'm all about the adventure. And I love the fact that you, your husband, and your 4 kids were on this sailboat for how long?
for a year.
A year. Okay. You guys, are you hearing this? Like they were on the sailboat for a year. That meant that you had to be homeschool mom.
Mm-hmm.
You had to, deal with all the things in close quarters, doing something that you'd never done before.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about the company that you were running at the time.
So at the time I was running a company that we did a lot of social media management and helped people grow their businesses through social media.
Yeah.
And I also had some private clients that we were working. So I had amazing, amazing employees that like we had prepared for probably about a year and a half of making sure we had the right systems in place, the SOPs, like that my business could run without me, because crossing the Atlantic, I was prepared for 6 weeks of no one being able to contact me. That's a really long time, especially in a business world,
Yes. And how many employees did you have, with your company at that time?
At that time, I had 4 that were full-time, and then I had a couple of contractors.
Yeah. So again, like I want you guys to like appreciate the gravity of this, because not only did Brooke, essentially risk like her own livelihood, but she had people that were relying on her. And so it just goes to show the power of knowing how to set yourself up for success and how to hire the right people and how to leverage the right people in the right seats and the right bus, right? And how to have all of the processes in place to allow you to be able to do that, knowing that it was going to work out.
Yeah, we say we help you get the right people in the right seats doing the right thing at the right time. Because if you can do all of that, you have magic in your business.
Absolutely. So, we might be, talking to people who are listening to this and they're like, okay, I would love to sail around the world for a year. But I honestly, like, I'm going to keep my sights on, like, I just want to take a freaking week's vacation and not have to feel like I have to be on my phone all the time or on my computer all the time or being stressed out. I remember I was a crazy girl who live launched my program while I was driving through Montana. If anybody's ever driven through Montana, like, there's zero internet, you guys. But I had an amazing assistant, Sandy, who was covering everything and she was making everything work. And so, it's so easy to get so caught up in, oh my gosh, everything comes on me and I have to do everything and I can't possibly leave, or I can't possibly be in a place I don't have internet, or I can't possibly be 100% engaged with my family because I have all of these responsibilities and all these things. Tell us a little bit about the process that you went through to get yourself ready and how we can take that from your grand scale and apply it to maybe just us needing to get away for a few days.
Well, it all starts with the hiring the right people.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I when I first started, I was not a great hirer. Like, I almost got to the point where I'm like, I think I should hire this person, so I hired the opposite. And that usually worked out better. Like, it was really bad. And I had other people on my team that were like, Brooke, you really shouldn't hire people because you hire the wrong people. Because I'm like, but I like them. They would be so fun to work with.
Or oh, my cousin Tony needs a job and he has a laptop.
Yes, like, it'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't work out. Like, I totally did that, hired my whole family. It's the worst when you have to then fire your family. So hiring the right people is the most important. And how you do that, my rule of thumb is for any position, you need to talk to at least 3 people. Because if you have 2, it's very easy to be like, oh, well, I lean more towards this one or that one. But when you have 3, it makes it very, very clear who the right person is. So that is like a very tangible thing that you can do.
That is brilliant. And I am just going to say that the lessons that I have learned the hard way is to hire slow and fire fast. But sometimes when we're new to this game, right, we're just like, oh my gosh, there's a person that could be capable of doing this job. Yes. And therefore, this is going to be good enough. And so I love the fact that you are basically reminding us to slow our roll, figure out what it is that you really need and who the best person would be to fill that spot.
Yep. And the next thing to do is, before you hire them, do some sort of skill assessment. So, like, for example, if you're hiring someone to do graphic design for you. So I had a branding guide. It said, these are my brand colors. This is the feel, all of that. And I said, make a social media post for an upcoming webinar that I have. Even if you don't have that, like, just have them do a graphic. And I was amazed. People would send me stuff that was like bright yellow. I'm like, that's not even my brand color. So very easily, before I even had to waste my time of like doing an interview, I could tell from the skills assessment who would be good. And if you're hiring someone to like answer emails, give them like, okay, a client emails in and asks this question. I know you don't have any context, but how would you answer them?
Yeah.
That is very telling, by having them do something, like whatever their job is going to be, have them do a piece of that before you even interview them, because then you're going to get the best candidates on that interview.
Yeah. And I think, like, okay, so I'm going to just tackle a couple things that are maybe going through the minds of the people who are listening. They're like, oh my gosh, that sounds overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have 2 things I want to say about that, because if you are constantly living in a reactive state in your business, you are not going to get to a point of scaling. So you have to start thinking ahead and project, like, I am willing to put in this time and effort now so that I get to take vacations regularly, so that I get to travel around the world for a year, so that I get to not worry that things are going to fall apart if I get sick or I need to, be somewhere, do something. And so I really want you guys to start looking at a proactive approach to your business and think about the sacrifices that you can make now for the long term instead of always staying in the rat race. Okay. The second thing I want to say is that part of that overwhelm, Brooke, comes from, oh my gosh, that sounds like so much. And what if I have all of these people that are applying for this? I don't have time to go through all of that. And I've heard that one of the tips that I have from another expert we have inside of our program is to put something inside of the application, like submit a video of why you want this job, for example, so that if they don't take that step, they automatically weed themselves out. What kind of things do you do to help to essentially make it a more manageable process to go through all of those extra steps if you have a lot of people that apply?
So having a system to like put them through helps. So I pretty much run my whole business in ClickUp.
Yeah.
And so in ClickUp, you can have a form that they fill out, and then that creates a task, but that would be each one of the people that sign up. Then you can take them through the different statuses of where they're at. So that's a way to kind of manage and be like, okay, I may have 100 people that have applied, but I do is kind of a similar thing. I'll have them in the subject line, put something like totally random, like frozen banana, or like something weird that has nothing to do with it. And part of the reason I do that too is, can they follow directions?
Yes,
because right there, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit because people are like, okay, this is so cool, but I don't even know, like, how do I know when I should hire somebody? Like, what does that look like when I'm a solopreneur and I'm barely sustaining 10K a month, right? And I think a lot of times people are so afraid to invest in something to expand their business when they feel like they're barely able to sustain it themselves. And I see things differently because I'm all about potential. So, and I see investing in a different way. But I also need to be brought back down to like the practicality of things sometimes too. So I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts around all that?
So I would say the first thing that you can hire out is if you are like doing discovery calls or like your own sales calls, that is the easiest. Well, it's the easiest thing to like outsource because you can just pay them commission. So if they're not doing anything, you're not out anything. But hiring a sales, once you start in that process of hiring a sales team, know that sales is going to be your biggest turnover. So when you hire someone who's awesome, it's very rare that they're going to last longer than 6 months. So if you have that in your head and you know that already, that's why building out a process for it is really important, because you have a lot of turnover when it comes to sales. But if you aren't doing that, maybe you're just like selling through a landing page, hiring someone to help you with marketing, but then giving them a percentage of all the sales that they bring in from their marketing. That's a way that you can pay them a lower retainer rate, and then they get a bigger bonus on the back end. So that way you're not like paying them this huge salary and you don't know if they're going to work out or not.
Absolutely. That's such a brilliant way to do it. And I've heard other people also utilize things like metrics. So let's just say that you have a VA and you have part of their task is to improve your email list. Maybe once we hit a certain metric, they get, a bonus, or they get like a commission, or they get something else. And so when you can tie their performance to the pay that they're wanting to work towards, that's a way for you to get started. And as your business grows, that gives you more leverage to be able to pay them more anyway, right?
Right. Yep, exactly.
It's so brilliant. And I'm a big believer too that, like, how can I put this? The best way that I can describe this concept is when I was working full time in medicine, I was landlocked by my time. I had no control over when I got vacation, when my day ended. I never could get last minute days off. Like, it was really hard for me to manage all the things I wanted to do in the time that I had, the unpredictable time that I had. So to set appointments after work was nearly impossible. And so I realized early on that in order for me to get to the point where I wanted to be, I had to be willing to try to be resourceful and essentially duplicate myself.
Right.
And so in order for me to get to where I wanted to go, I had to think about, how could I get more done in the same amount of time? Having somebody else help do the things that I needed to do during that time, right?
Right.
Any like thoughts around that?
So that's where you look at the things that are easy to have someone else do, things that
Yep.
you don't necessarily have to do.
Yeah.
And even if it's just hiring a VA and saying, okay, I'm going to have you come in, and like emails are the things that just bog me down. So
Yes.
emails is the things that you need to delegate first.
Yes.
And whatever the role is that you are going to be hiring first, it's important to be very clear on what the role is. And
Mhm.
also, like you said, give them it's called KPI, so key performance indicators.
Yep.
What are the things that we know that this person is doing a good job? And I'll give you an example. So this is way too far into my business, like I should have known better, but I hired a social media manager.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, all right, I interviewed a bunch of people. They like did all the skill sets and everything. And I followed all my rules. I interviewed the 3 people and I'm like, okay, this is the girl. She's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then after a month, I was like, okay, like I have no report from you. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know what you're doing. Are you actually, like, I see that you're posting, but
Yeah.
like, are you doing XYZ? And she's like, well, you didn't tell me that those were the things that were important to you.
Okay.
Right. So I didn't give her proper expectation. And so she was not meeting my expectations. And that's where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, we need to set KPIs. And once we got that set up, then
Mhm.
like she actually was awesome. And at first, like I was ready to fire her because I'm like, this girl sucks. She
Yeah.
doesn't know what she's doing.
Yeah, yeah, but we just didn't communicate it. And
Right.
I think that like I completely can relate to your story because it's like once you realize that you hire somebody that does have that their shit together in that way,
Yes.
it's just like, oh, this is great. So I have one of our experts inside of Spiral Up is from London, and he is a phenomenal SEO expert.
Mm.
And I get weekly reports on all of these KPIs, and I know exactly where we're at and what's working, what isn't, and all the things. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And so that's why all of my clients have metrics that we go through. And I actually just did a couple of I call them celebration calls. So at the end of 6 months, we kind of recap to see how they've done. And I look at metrics not only from like emails, social media subscribers, like how they've grown, but I also look at things like your confidence level when we started was this, and now it's this. Your clarity was this, and now it's this. And so it's really cool how you can get creative on all kinds of different ways to have KPIs so that you know that you're moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Well, and I think it's important to like have your business be running, but
Yeah.
it's also like, how are you feeling with how much time you're spending with your kids,
Mhm.
And I made the mistake in my last business where I was hustling all the time and I was
Yeah.
doing it in the name of my family.
Oh my
And
God. Right.
we're all like have good intentions, but then it's like, oh, it's 7 o'clock and I haven't seen my family all day. They probably are hungry. I probably should stop working.
Yeah, no, to 100%, especially when we love what we do, it's really
Yes.
easy for us to get in that zone. And it's funny that you mentioned that because my love language, Brooke, is acts of service.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, all of my working was for them
Right.
as an expression of my love, right? Because I'm going to give them this life and I'm going to sacrifice now for later and all the things. My husband is a quality time guy. And
Mm.
he's like, hey, where are you, babe? Like,
Yeah.
haven't seen you
Right.
for a while, And I think that it's really important that we start to create that. I had another conversation with a friend, and she's like, I hate the word balance. She's like, the harmony that we can
Mm-hmm.
allow the and life to express itself, right?
Yes.
And I think that like I really want to in our conversation dive a little bit deeper into the processes, the systems that you keep mentioning, because I know that that's your zone of genius, by the
Yeah.
way. And so it's so important because when we're doing any of these things, it allows for us to be able to delegate and to trust that people know what they're doing because we have a clear communicated system underlining everything that we do so that it's easy to transition between people. It's easy to know what somebody needs to do if you step away. So tell us a little bit about the power of systems, any tips, any wisdom that you have around all of that.
Well, when I think of systems, and especially since we're talking to mompreneurs, I
Yeah.
want you to think about if you just asked your kids to go clean the bathroom. And there's always like there's the kid clean and then there's the mom clean, And they'll ask you like do you want to clean or do you want a mom clean? And so the difference is, one, they're doing it their own way of however they think is good enough. But mom clean is like, nope, I'm going to come in and I'm going to inspect. Did you like wash baseboards? Did you clean around the bottom of the toilet? Like all these things, you know? And so they know that those are the things they have to do if they want it mom clean. And it's the same thing in your business because you hire amazing people that are very competent. They know what they're going to do, but they're going to be doing it in their own way. And is it the way that you want it done in your business?
Right.
So giving them the systems, and even if it's just a checklist of like, okay, these are the things that I want to know. And then here are the KPIs that are around that thing.
Yeah.
And you can set KPIs. It's not just like when most people think of KPIs, they're going to be thinking like in marketing terms of like, what is your like cost per acquisition, or what's your return on your investment, like all of those things. But a KPI could also be like, how many times did you reach out to this client? If it's in sales, and it's like, how many times do you reach out to the potential client before you say, okay, they're really not interested? Because you may feel comfortable with doing it 3 times. I think you should do a 5. You know, and just getting clear on like all those expectations. And so one of the easiest ways, especially if you're going to be delegating something that you're doing to somebody else, is to create what is that process of how it is that you're doing it. And when you do the thing, I love the tool Loom. So, because it will record your screen and it records you talking and everything. So as you're doing that thing, you can talk through your process. This is what I do. This is why I'm doing it. It's very important, because if people understand the why behind it, they're way more likely to actually do it. And then you can just simply give them the Loom video. Like that's a very easy way to get started, because then they know what good looks like.
So what other tools would you start using now? Let's just say that you are already a solopreneur and you are like, okay, you ladies are making me realize that I need to live my life by design and I need to start incorporating more harmony, right? What can I start doing now to get myself prepared? How can I get myself more organized? How can I incorporate more systems and procedures in my current day-to-day to set myself up for success once I want to go down that route?
So ClickUp, I think everyone should be using. I love it. It's kind of like I call it as like if Asana or Trello had a baby, that would be ClickUp. So you can
it's really inexpensive too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, you can start with the free version and you're totally fine. So with ClickUp, it can get kind of confusing because you have different spaces you can set up, and then there's folders and there's lists and all these things. So I look at like, what's the purpose of my business? That's what I start with. So the purpose is to create impact. It also is to be profitable.
Impact and income, right? Yeah, exactly.
You have to do that, or else it's just a hobby. So my guess is that's probably everyone's purpose of their business. So that goes at the very top. Then I think, what are the big rocks that are contributing to that? So it's going to be content that you put out. It's going to be your converting leads into sales or leads into clients. It's going to be your client experience. And then it's going to be like the operations, your team, that kind of thing. But for most businesses, that's your 4 big rocks. So in ClickUp, I create a space for each one of those. So I have one for my content. I have one for leads to clients. I have one for client experience. And then I have one for like all my ops stuff.
Okay.
So that's one way you can start organizing it. And then when you look at your content, so I also have a podcast. I do a YouTube channel. So I have a list for all the different podcasts I'm doing. I have a list for all the different YouTube shows that I'm doing. And then that's how I can keep track of that as far as content goes. And then you would do the same as for your lead to customer. That's where all your marketing funnels are going to go, all the things that need to be done for that. And I also have a list that's just called Brooke's Think Tank.
Yep.
And that's where I dump all of my ideas. There was one night where I could not sleep because I had so many things going on in my head.
Yeah.
And so I just got my phone on the ClickUp app and I'm like, I'm just going to dump all these things in my head. And I had 97 tasks that I had in there. I was like, okay, now that my brain is empty, I can go back to sleep. But that way you don't forget those things.
Yes.
You can put them on a shelf. And then when you're ready for it, come back to them.
Absolutely. You guys, like, this is brilliant. And I know that we've talked, throughout all of our summer sessions here about, productivity and organization. Like, these are themes that come in, you guys, because the more organized you are, the more readily you're able to delegate and free yourself up, right? The more organized you are, the less chaos and clutter is going on inside of your brain, inside of your energy field, all of the things that are holding you back from being as productive. And I want you to start working smarter, not harder. I want you to be able to get done as much in a 3-hour chunk as you can in an 8, because you're so freaking intentional and you're organized and you're, just, you know what to do and you do it. And even if you're creative like me, like, all of that stuff is not fun. That stuff is not the way my brain is naturally wired, but I have made myself create my business around that, because I know that in order for me to make the biggest impact, income, and create the most time with my family, I need to boss up. And when you are struggling with how to boss up, I don't even know where to start, you have resources like Brooke that can help you to determine, because that's one of the things that you do. Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm.
That you help
that's
people.
Exactly what I help people do, because it's when you are like that visionary entrepreneur and you have all these ideas and you're going all these different directions and you see the shiny object over here and over there, like, all of that is wonderful, but we need to start making it so those things will actually come to fruition.
Yes. And so there's so much knowledge, and that's why I create, you guys, the resources that I do inside of my program, because I want you to have access to brilliant people like Brooke. If you want to just get started on conversations with her like ASAP, I want you to go ahead and go in the show notes and look at all of the ways that you can follow her, how you can connect with her, all of the amazingness that she's bringing to this. If you're like, I want to know more about how to incorporate Spiral Up and Brooke into this, all of the details are inside of the show notes as well. Okay, you guys. And I just want to thank you. I mean, I know that at one point, if I recall, you had 27 employees that worked for you.
Yep.
I mean, you guys, like, this woman knows what the hell she's doing. And she was able to sail around the world with her family. Like, you are proof that it's possible. And when we surround ourselves with people like Brooke, we elevate what we believe is possible. And that allows us to start to live what has otherwise been impossible up until now. So continue to surround yourself with people who are going to help you to spiral up. Okay, you guys, I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day, and make sure that you get all of the access to the masterclass that I have coming up to help you to crush your burnout and help you to create sustainable 10K. Bye, everybody.
So much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Each honest review helps me spiral up so that I can serve you even better. Whether you're feeling a lack of impact, income, or time freedom, or perhaps you're just ready for massive momentum in your business, let's chat. Apply for a breakthrough call so that you can gain clarity, identify what's holding you back, and make a plan to spiral up. Head on over to im-lifebydesign.com/breakthrough or access the link in the show notes. For immediate support, log into our community, the Better Club. We focus on inspiration, tactical guidance, and support. This is a community that wants to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business, and we're going to help you do the same. Let's spiral up, friends.